To sell or not to sell? So I've discussed it in videos before that the only sellers you have right now are Arizona and Colorado. And if Arizona doesn't stop winning, they're not smart about it and they don't stop winning, Arizona could fool themselves into thinking they're in contention for a playoff spot right now, too. So if a GM wants to fly by the seat of his pants and make moves, who do you move? So that's the question. A lot of people have asked me, who do you think is most likely to move at the deadline? It's going to be somebody we don't think of. It is. It's going to be somebody. Shattenkirk is the easy name. But with what the Blues want back, and the fact that St. Louis is in a playoff spot right now, they can't just hand Shattenkirk off. And he's not the guy that St. Louis needs to get rid of right now either. I really don't think that's a smart move on their part. I know last year they waited and they lost during free agency. I get that. But if you're in contention, you got to roll with it. It's just the way it works. Now, I'm not going to get into what teams are going to get back because I don't know what the market's going to be. The market could be crazy. It could be first rounders thrown around like crazy due to the fact that this year's draft is not seen as being very strong. That doesn't mean it's not going to be. It just means it's not viewed that way. Or it could just be as quiet as I've said it's going to be. But Buffalo. So you're Buffalo. And you're in a position where you might be able to go on a run. But maybe not. I think Evander Kane's off the market right now. I do. I think he's at a 5.25 cap hit, and it expires after next season. I think they're going to roll with it. He might be a rental at next year's deadline, but I don't think he gets moved this year. I don't know if he gets protected either. They might dangle him out there and let Vegas take him. Marcus Foligno is a restricted free agent in the offseason. His point totals have never quite got to where his out-of-this-world rookie season looked. I mean, I think he had 13 points in 14 games the first season, and then the following season, everybody expected all these points from him, and it's just not Marcus's style. I could see him being moved. I could see him having value. He's only 25, so the potential is there for him to grow. He's a winger. Honestly, I think he would have value to a team like a Vancouver, who view themselves as being in the middle. Benning has been big on picking up guys in their mid-20s, so I could see that being the destination for him. The other thing that would make Foligno an attractive rental is that he is a restricted free agent, and he only has that $2 million cap hit. So basically, any team that's up near the cap, because it'll be deadline, they should be able to pick him up. So that's if Buffalo says forget it. Now, of course, Brian Gionta is the name that's out there as a rental. Gionta, I think, is kind of a no-brainer that he gets moved, but he has a modified no trade, meaning he would have to give them a list of teams that he's willing to go to or not willing to go to. Depends on the no trade clause, and then they work from that. Matt Molson also has a modified no trade, but he has 3 years left on his contract, including this one at $5 million per. He's not going anywhere. In terms of other options, if they decide Girgensons isn't going to fit in long term, they may want to move him at the deadline. Again, restricted free agent, low cap hit, 23 years of age, and there's got to be a team out there that might say, yeah, we'll take a shot at him. Now, I'm not saying you move all of them. I'm saying you move one or two pieces. Okay? And then on the blue line, I can't see any of them moving. I just can't see it happening. They've got Josh Georges has a modified no trade. He's $3.9 million this year and next. I don't think he moves. Cody Franzen's a UFA at the end of the year. He potentially is a rental. I don't know that he moves either. He might. Apparently, he's really good with the advanced stats. So, for a team like a Florida or an Arizona, he might be an attractive option. But at 29, he's more attractive to Florida than to Arizona because Arizona's building for the future, and Florida figures right now is the future. And in net, there's an interesting storyline. So, the AHL All-Star Game's on right now. Buffalo farmhand Linus Ullmark is a pretty good goaltender, and he was pretty good for them last year too. I think they're gonna have to decide between Lehner and Nilsson, and Lehner and Nilsson there's only 1 year between them. Nilsson's unrestricted at the end of the year. Lehner's a restricted free agent. Lehner's going to get a raise. Now, if there's a perception that Lehner isn't what Buffalo thought he would be, and they don't want to give him that raise, he could move at the deadline. And whereas I think moving a Bishop or a Fleury is going to be difficult because their stats haven't been great, moving a Lehner could be very, very advantageous to the team that gets him because he's a restricted free agent. See, being restricted, being 25, he has the potential. His numbers aren't bad this year either. I know Buffalo's had a rough year, but his numbers aren't bad. So I could see that being a move to bring Ullmark up. So that's Buffalo. That's what Buffalo would do. Let's take a look at the Canucks. Canucks have very little cap space right now. They're paying a lot of money to a lot of guys. And like, for instance, Sedin, Eriksson, those 3 names, $20 million on the cap. That's pretty rough. If you add Burrows, that's 24.5 million. You add Brandon Sutter, that's $29 million for those 5 guys. And it's debatable whether or not Brandon Sutter is rightfully a third-line center or a second-line center. When they brought him in, Benning said he envisioned him as a second-line center, and that's where Sutter wanted to play. Thus, the large amount of money he got for being a third-line center, $4.3 million, because the Canucks figured he'd be a second-line center. So, who would you move? Let's say the Canucks fall out of the race. Anton Rodin can't. Every time he steps on a pair of skates, he injures himself. So he's not going anywhere, even though there's an RFA in the offseason. Marcus Granlund, $900,000 this year and $900,000 next year. Could be an attractive option at 23 years of age with that low cap hit for a team like, say, a Tampa if they're trying to go on a run, or somebody who's got injuries. That's why I said Tampa, because Tampa with Stamkos, who knows when he's going to be back, and Granlund can play center. Horvat's RFA in the offseason. He's getting a huge raise. I think the biggest mistake of Jim Benning's is not having Horvat signed to that extension early in the season. Because I watched that All-Star game enough to see that Bo Horvat's stock has just gone through the roof. So when he's being compared to Joe Pavelski, you've got a problem if you want to keep him. He's going to cost a lot of money with a lot of term. Much more right now than he would have cost, say, in October. Brendan Gaunt's RFA, Reed Boucher's RFA, if he ever even plays for the Canucks. Jack Skilly's UFA, he would be a decent rental option, and you're not going to get a lot back for him. He's been useful for the Canucks in a bottom 6 role. Jason Megna, I can't figure out why they're playing as much as they are unless they're showcasing him for a trade. Because he's not a good offensive player. I like the kid a lot, trust me. He's not a good offensive player. Michael Chaput is RFA at the end of the season, $600,000. I could see him going to wherever. He's not going to get you a lot back. On the blue line, everybody wants to trade Edler. Problem, Edler has a no-trade clause. He's 30 years old. He's breaking down, and he has $5 million left on his contract for next year and the year after. That kills any hope of trading him. People want to trade Tanev. People are crazy. Trading Tanev would be stupid. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Lucas Sbisa. Sbisa is widely recognized as the guy that the Canucks probably lose in the expansion draft to Vegas. Spisa's played really well this year. That $3.6 million looked bad at the time the contract was signed. It doesn't look as bad right now. And at a deadline, you're not taking on as much of a cap hit as you would have been if you took him on at the start of the year. I think Sbisa would be a relatively decent pickup for somebody. And not only that, but if Goodbranson comes back, then you move Sbisa out and you haven't damaged your top 6. Goodbranson's going to get a huge raise in the offseason. Philip Larson, he may be a rental. He really hasn't been spectacular. Trampkin is RFA in the offseason. He's getting a big raise. Stetcher has 2 years left. He's not going anywhere. Hutton, His $2.8 million a year contract kicks in next season, so he's not going anywhere. Viega has this year and next year left at $750,000. He could be a rental. I doubt it. Could happen. Ryan Miller, of course, is the big name. Yes, he would be a good rental for somebody. I think he's playing better now than he was playing in Buffalo the year that he got traded out as a rental. So that's what Vancouver could do. Again, this is if these teams sell. That's where I'm looking at it. I'm not getting into Columbus and Arizona because they're being dissected to death on TSN. You go to TSN's page. You click on the trade rumors link for under NHL. Every article is about the Avalanche. And what's hilarious is Landeskog's name comes up and Duchesne's, and they've mentioned almost every team in the league. It's like Hockey Buzz has become the way that we announce trade rumors, which is just sad and really, really sad. Dallas. Dallas should be sellers. Dallas needs to sell, and they need to get it through their heads that they're not going to make it. Patrick Sharp has been rumored to be on his way out. I wouldn't mind that. Rumor, of course, has been Chicago. I don't know how Chicago fits them under the cap at $6 million. I know that cap hit drops at the deadline. If there's anybody who can figure it out, it's Stan Bowman. I would be perfectly fine with Patrick Sharp moving out. He's 35. He's not getting better. He's had a good run lately. Ship him out. I wouldn't mind seeing Spezza go if anybody was willing to take his $7.5 million cap hit. Because he hasn't been great. Sagan's not going anywhere. Ben's not going anywhere. Hemsky would be a good pickup as a rental if he wasn't on the IR. Cody Eakin has $3.8 million on his contract this year and the 3 years after. Antoine Roussell's not going anywhere. Yuri Hoodler could be a rental. Patrick Eaves would be a fantastic rental. Patrick Eaves is having a very good season. Dallas needs to do one of two things. Sign him before the trade deadline or trade him. Because otherwise they're just going to lose him for nothing. Korpakowski is rental material. Brett Ritchie, I think, would be a good rental, and I'd like to see him go to Anaheim and play with Nick. I would. I think that would actually be kind of cool. And I'm not an Anaheim fan. Devon Shore, 2 years left. Fax is not going anywhere. Janmark's been on the IR all year because the hockey gods hate me. Curtis McKenzie's not going anywhere. Adam Cracknell would be a very good rental. He hasn't had the offense that he showed early in the season because, of course, he doesn't. He's not an offensive player, but Cracknell is a hard worker, and I'd like to see him go as a rental. On the blue line, you got Klingberg, Ham Hughes, not going anywhere. Odia's on the IR. Jordy Ben, not going anywhere. Jamie Alexiak's on the IR. He's not either going anywhere. Nemeth, Honka, Lindell's an RFA at the end of the year, and Stephen Johns. I could see Stephen Johns being moved. If they decide we're not making it this year, we're going to sell. I could see Stephen Johns going, and I could see them getting a good prospect or draft pick back. Stephen Johns is a very decent defenseman. They have a lot of depth there. I could see them using that depth to pick up some more prospects because Dallas isn't flush with really good prospects right now. And in net, well, that's where the tire fire starts. I don't care which one of them gets moved. People ask me about that. I don't care. I don't care which one they keep because they're going to end up keeping both. $10.4 million in cap is eaten up by their goaltenders because they're stupid. You don't put that much cap space into goaltenders, no matter who your goaltenders are. Who else should I look at in terms of selling? Winnipeg. Okay, Jets fans, please refrain from booing until I've gone through this. Winnipeg's in a tough spot too because they're on the verge of being out of contention, and I don't think they're going to be able to overcome that. But who they trade is going to be tricky too because the guys who they're probably going to want to get rid of or rent out are on the IR. Dano would be a good rental, Marco Dano, if anybody wants him. He's on the last year of his entry level. Matthew Perreault, $4.125 million for 4 years after this one. I don't think anybody's going to touch him. Drew Stafford would be the obvious pick for a rental. I've heard a lot of ire thrown at him since he went to Winnipeg. It's too bad. I liked Drew Stafford a lot when he was younger in Buffalo. But he's never really become anything more than just a useful top 6 guy some of the time. Chris Thorburns, UFA at the end of this year. If anybody wants him, I would think he'd be available as a rental, even if Winnipeg thinks they're going to make the playoffs. Joel Armia, he has a year left on his contract and could be an attractive trading piece. But I would think Armia would be more attractive to a Vegas expansion team. And Winnipeg might be able to get, say, a third-round pick for him, kind of thing. Just as an example. Brennan Tanev is RFA at the end of the year with rights to arbitration. I could see Tanev. I don't know. Could I see Tanev going to Vancouver? I mean, I wanted Brendan Tanev to play in Vancouver to play with Chris. It'd be interesting to see if that happened. Cops RFA. Ehlers still has 2 years left. Ehlers isn't going anywhere, of course. On the blue line, you have Bufflin, you have Enstrom. I think if a really good offer came in for Enstrom, I think they'd take it. It's not going to happen. Tyler Myers is on the IR. Jacob Trouba has money coming in. Mark Stewart has money coming in, meaning neither of them are going anywhere. Postma might be a good UFA free or deadline pickup for somebody. Josh Morrissey, he's not going anywhere. Ben Chirot, IR, he's RFA at the end of the year. I don't know. I guess the team looking for toughness on the blue line if he can play at the deadline. Who knows? And then in net, of course, they are absolutely showcasing Pavlich to try to move him. That is absolutely what they're doing right now. And to try to get back into the playoff hunt. Hellebuck is RFA at the end of the year. Hutchinson has another year left after this one. I would think if anybody made an offer for Hutchinson or Pavlich right now, the Jets are listening. Hutchinson has not been very good, and Pavlich, though he's played decently since coming back up, there's that $3.9 million. He's UFA at the end of the year, and I can't see Winnipeg doing a lot to hold on to him. So there you go. Buffalo, Vancouver, Dallas, Winnipeg. And I should do one more team because these guys are over the cap. And this is the one that everybody agrees needs to be torn down. Tear down Detroit and rebuild, right? Here's the problem. Zetterberg, nobody's touching that contract. Franz Nielsen, nobody's touching that contract whether he was available or he wasn't. Gustav Nyquist, nobody's touching that contract. $4.75 million this year and 2 years after. Justin Abdelkader, nobody's touching that one. Darren Helm, same thing. Thomas Tatar, $2.75 million RFA with he has the right to arbitration. I don't think he's played very well. I think he's playing his way out of Detroit, but I don't know who's picking him up. Thomas Vanek would be a tremendous rental option, but there's GMs who are going to remember when he was a rental to Montreal and he flopped there. Not his fault, I don't think, but the funniest part is I've read a rumor that Montreal might make a move for him again. Really, you're going to rent the same guy twice, expecting, the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing more than once, over and over again, expecting different results. Also called the Canucks. Riley Sheehan has 2 years, or he's got this year and next year. Drew Miller, he's 32, UFA at the end of this year, might be a half decent pickup. The guys who are going to be rentals, for the most part, are going to be kind of extra pieces. Thomas Yurko, I remember when he was going to be a big star. Never really happened. Steve Ott's UFA at the end of this year. I think Detroit will throw him at anybody who'll take him. Athanasiou is RFA at the end of this year. We all know he's getting a raise. Luke Glendening, he gets $1.8 million a year for 4 years starting next year. Mike Green, not going anywhere. This is on the blue line now. Danny DeKaiser, he's not going anywhere. Nicholas Kronwall, not going anywhere. Jonathan Erickson, $4.25 million this year and 3 after that. They absolutely would trade him if anybody wanted to touch that. Brandon Smith, he's at $2.75 million. He's currently on the IR. He's UFA at the end of this year. If somebody wants him as a rental, if he can come back for the deadline, Brandon Smith to me would be a really good pickup for that. Alexei Marchenko, as this year and next year, 1.4. I can't see him getting moved. Xavier Ouellet, can't see him getting moved either. And in net, Peter Mrazek and Jared Coreau, because Jimmy Howard's on LTIR. And Howard's got 3 years left this year and 2 more after that at $5.2 million. It's funny when they talk about who you're going to protect. You protect Mrazek. It's simple. You protect Mrazek. If Vegas wants Jimmy Howard and his $5.29 million cap hit for 2 years when he's already 32 right now, take it. Absolutely take it. And I'm not saying anything bad about Coreau here. I think Coreau is decent, but Mrazek is the potential future here. Mrazek's also 1 year younger than Jared Coreau, so you got to keep everything in perspective here. So if you notice with Detroit, the problem with Detroit is most of the pieces that you're going to want to get rid of, they're unmovable until after the expansion draft. Once Vegas is in the league, once you have that team that wants talented players and might want to beef up its cap situation a little bit, then some of these guys have a market. Ken Holland has been very loyal to his players, and it's to a fault. It has finally caught up with him. He's given out contracts to guys that probably should have been given less money or less term, and it's caught up with him. This team is currently in horrible cap space problem, and they're going to be in a horrible cap space problem next year as well. And I don't know that there's a fix for it other than expansion. Vegas could help them out big time. It may cost them a first-round draft pick to make it happen, but they're going to have to do something. And this is only if they decide to sell. So there's just an example of if teams decide to sell, who has better pieces to move. I think Buffalo's in a good position to cash in big at the deadline if they decide to sell, and I think they should. But the pressure to reach the playoffs when you have guys like Eichel, O'Reilly, Okposo, the pressure's there. And Ristolainen is coming into his own, and Lehner's played very well, better than he's given credit for. If you sell, it's going to upset some fans. I don't think it'll upset ones that really understand how this whole thing works, but it'll upset some. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the 5 teams I went through. It doesn't mean these are the only 5 teams. These are just 5 teams I'm picking out from capfriendly.com, saying these ones should consider being sellers, because I think the market's going to be pretty good. If you're a seller, you're in the minority, and you'll be able to get more back for players. But not everybody's got great trading chips. So let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're just browsing your way through. And we're cruising in terms of subscriber numbers right now, and it makes me very excited about what's coming up in February, because my birthday's coming up in February. So, you know, I didn't do anything for my birthday last year on my channel because I didn't have hockey on it at the time, but I'm going to do something for it this year. I'll figure out something to do it for it this year. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will talk to you all again soon.